Hey everybody, welcome to another Run Wild with Us. Ask Chris and Lisa anything. And I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. I am here with Chris Major, who is one of our fantastic editors and also one of our authors. We may have some additional visitors, by the way. I have Sue Cats, the Master and Margarita, and boy, oh boy, do they love to cause havoc. Whenever we're in the middle of chatting.
No, I think they're part of the show at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they are. They're the entertainment. We're just here to support them.
Yeah.
So if you've never joined us before, this is not a big deal. I just want to make sure you know that if you have a question for us, go ahead and pop it in the comments section. What'll happen is I will then repeat whatever question that you have, and then Chris and I will respond. Now, if you're watching this and it is not 4 p.m. Pacific time or 7 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday, this is not a big deal. Go ahead, pop your questions within the comments section, and we will then respond to them. Now, in that vein, I'm going to start off with a couple of questions we got during the week, and I want to thank everybody who sent us questions. We love answering them. So, okay. First question is from Leonard Pig, and he asks, what are your feelings on writing characters that are in the public domain? And that was to both Chris and I. So, Chris, what do you think?
I think it's tricky, and I think you'd have to be really creative in how you do it, because a character that's written so well and a plot that's written so well that it's lasted long enough to be in public domain that's a pretty big shadow. But Dean Koontz wrote a book called, I think it's a series of books called what is it, Frankenstein, the Prodigal Son, something like that.
Oh,
and
okay.
it's set in like modern times, and it's the Frankenstein story, but there's things, bells and whistles change and stuff like that, so it can be done. I wouldn't lift really big kind of things from public domain, because I think that's low hanging fruit. It's easy to do. But I wouldn't. But it's done. It's capable. I mean, Frankenstein Prodigal Son was turned into a TV series, so it's not like people wouldn't like it. I think it just has to be done really well. That's my opinion, though.
Well, and so I agree. And you also have to look at the fact that, I mean, it's been done a lot, right? In reality, there was like a prequel to Follow the Yellow Brick Road, to
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. A prequel was written to the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I know
In
that.
reality, there's a Broadway play it's a prequel to the Wizard of Oz, but how the Wicked Witch of the West became the Wicked Witch of the West, and shows you how she's not actually wicked. And it's called Wicked. Just putting that.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Okay, yeah.
Wicked is also based on a novel. And it was done beautifully. So I'm kind of, if you do something like that, you've got to bring a fresh voice, a fresh viewpoint to make it really interesting, like Wicked, right? And honestly, the book Wicked was killer. Like, I love that book. So if you can do that when you're looking at a character that's now public domain, then go for it. But understand, to all the points that Chris already made, especially if it's a very well-known character and if it's one that is well loved, then you are dealing with a whole history behind that character and that world. So keep that in mind. And I think typically the folks who do that really well are actually huge fans of the original content. And so, they've studied it so well, and in such depth, that they're able to stay true to that original concept.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Like, when you think about it, having, like you said, studied maybe even more than just the original piece, maybe read, stuff about, or documentaries about it, or about the author, or about kind of things that they wanted to know that wasn't in the piece or the work. It would definitely take a lot of knowledge of the character or whatever it is that you wanted to what you wanted to take and put into your own project.
Yeah, and to your point, it may even go as far as saying like making sure that you're doing a lot of like if it's a historical piece, right? If it's a character that sits in a certain point of history, or that even if it's a fictionalized area and it's around a specific area of history, you want to make sure that you understand that so that however you're pulling that character out and you're recreating it, or maybe you're giving them their own story, then you just want to make sure that you're true to it, right?
Right.
But I actually find when it's done with like secondary characters or ones that never, so to your point, even Frankenstein wasn't really given a voice, right? Because it was Frankenstein was more about Frankenstein, who was the doctor, not the creature.
Right.
So there have been reinventions around Frankenstein, the creature, that have been really interesting because there were explorations of like who were the people that constituted or put together the actual monster itself, right? And maybe even like why did Frankenstein, the doctor, select those pieces of those bodies, if that makes sense,
Yeah, it does.
And stuff like that can be really interesting, going deep on secondary characters or going deep on characters that previously maybe were more so like two-dimensional, right? And really making them real. That can be a lot of fun. It can be very, very interesting.
Right. Giving a voice to those characters and personality and life, really. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, though, to all the points Chris already made, you just need to make sure that you've done your homework and you really understand that world and that character in that world. So
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I hope that helped. Next question is I'm putting together, a short story collection. I realize that you are not open to submissions, but I would like to know what you consider the ideal word count to be. Thank you. And again, congratulations on your honor, Mark Williams. Okay, Mark, guess what, honey? We are open to submissions. We actually take short story collections all the time. All you have to do is go to our submittable page, which is runningwildpress.submittable.com, and then pick long form fiction and submit your collection that way. We tend to lean toward publishing collections that it's a theme or all the characters are in the same world,
right?
Like that kind of thing, so that at least there's an implication that it's, there's an overarching narrative. We don't always do that. Sometimes the short stories are so compelling, we go ahead and publish a collection where the characters are not all related. So either way, but honey, go for it.
Please
send us your work. I literally, so for anyone who's watching this, if you sent us anything since like 2019, I literally on Sunday night finished going through every single submission that we have gotten, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a lot.
Yes.
People write.
They do.
You people tell some stories. So, and then also, so if what that means to you, if you have not heard back, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. Because what that means is if you did not hear back from me and I did not ask you any questions and you didn't get a rejection. And I hope if you are someone who got a rejection from me, and know that it came from me, anytime the piece is rejected, which means I probably now just put a target on my back, but I'm all right with that. Typically the rejections are actually coming from me personally. So when you see that signature where it says Lisa Kastner, no joke, it is actually coming directly from me. I like to try and make sure I'm giving you some kind of lead or some kind of hint as to how to approach a revision or why we may have declined it. So especially when it's this round. So it's an initial round of going through pieces that were submitted to us. At this point, if you did not hear back from us, that means you're still in the running. Now, if you are kind of not comfortable with this, because what this means is you're in the running to have your piece published in 2022 or 2023, right? Because that is those are the catalogs that we are looking to build now. Believe it or not, we already have three or four works on calendar for 2022. We typically try to publish, or we publish we go for between 15 and 20 titles per year. So once we fill, usually we hit like the 18 mark in a year that's scheduled to be published for that year. I will then start filling for the next year. So in this case, 2023. And the reason I do that is in case in the next year there are some titles that come forward that are so amazing and so compelling that I know we absolutely have to publish them within 2022, right? So just so you guys are aware. If you got a rejection from me and I didn't give you a reason, please feel free to go ahead and reply to the rejection and ask for feedback. And honestly, anytime a press rejects a piece, if you don't feel as though they gave you any kind of feedback, please don't hesitate to just ask in a very polite and nice way, hey, I was wondering if you could give me some guidance on potential revision, right? Because it may actually be, because I'm going to tell you right now, one of my stellar cats, who's the real star of the show, has decided she needs to climb into my sweater, because that's the fun place to be right now.
Right.
If you ever get a rejection from anybody, please don't hesitate to go ahead and ask them straight up, hey, I wondered if you could give me some recommendations on revision or areas to focus, or what potentially, or even like, why might this have been rejected? Because as writers, we have a tendency to assume we go down to the dark path.
Yes.
Think, oh my God, that means it's complete crap. No one will ever want to read this. No one will ever want to see it. I am not a good writer. I'm awful, blah, blah, blah. That's all a bunch of bullshit. I'm telling you that now. Straight up, that is crap.
It is definitely bullshit.
It's total bullshit. And the reason is a lot of times is that, and Chris can attest to this, we've got right now, I think it's like 83 possible submissions that all of our editors are currently going through and deciding what ones they want to work with in the next 2 years. Now, if you do the math, right, if we only publish a maximum of 20 books a year, that's only 40. So that means that at minimally 43 of these, we're going to reject.
Right.
For no reason other than we just can't publish them all.
Yeah.
Right?
Time.
So anytime, guys, anytime you get a rejection, please, please, please. And if it doesn't, they don't tell you why, just ask. Right? So, okay. Next question is from Constance and Craig Mason. Hey. So, is there a set fee for publishing? So I'll be honest, I don't actually understand that question. So Running Wild, we actually pay our authors and we pay our editors. We're not a vanity press.
Yeah, there's some presses like that, vanity presses, or some press they call, hybrid or whatever, where they will, you pay them and then, they'll do some things for you. So I kind of get that question too. But yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, if you're looking for a publisher that is basically just going to publish your work, there are tons of them and you can search on them online and just pick among them. And a lot of them will actually even hire an editor for you. But again, you're paying for that. In our case, we and I'll own upfront. You know, we don't pay a lot upfront. We actually, our payment model or our payment structure is one where it's created so more so that like the author and the editors and all those involved are more heavily incentivized for larger sales, because you get a much bigger amount percentage based on the actual retail sales. Um, so
And
yeah.
I like to add to that too. A lot of people, you know, when you're dealing with smaller presses or independent presses, that uh, the money you may want up front, you can get on the back end. You know, like you said, it's just the higher royalties. I know I've I've talked to some people where, the royalty percentages vary based on the press, but
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to some people where, you know, they may have gotten an agent, gone to kind of a bigger house, and they may get, you know, 12% of the royalties, which, you know, depending on how well your book does, is nothing in comparison to how much it actually generated. But you go to a smaller press, and who knows, that number could be 30, 40, you know, which is, you know, and if the book is good, the quality, it doesn't matter where you publish, the quality of the work is what determines um, revenue for the book. So if you're really good, to me, it's a no brainer. You will go somewhere where you could get more of your profit from your work as opposed to taking a significant amount less.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the revenue. I mean, I agree. It's the quality of the story. It's also how well is it marketed? I was actually just talking to some authors about this in the last couple of days. It's come up a few times. It's interesting how publishing today works. This is the one who decided she wanted to be in my jacket, so now she needs to be in my lap. um, it's interesting how publishing works today. You know, oftentimes the payment model, like, so a lot of people will go out and they'll become an independent author because they figure, F it, I can make more money making this on my own, right? And if you are an influencer, if you are someone who has a very prominent following, you speak at a lot of conferences, you have you know, you do a lot of appearances, that actually may be true. You probably could make a nice chunk of change
Yeah.
because you're out there in front of thousands and thousands of people. You know, maybe you have 100,000 people following you online, and therefore you have a greater likelihood that you're going to go viral, right?
Right.
And that you'll get a bigger following. If you're someone that you have a great story, meaning a personal story, and you're appearing on TV a lot, you're doing a lot of articles, so thereby you're getting a lot of attention by people, generally speaking, then yeah, honestly, self-publishing your book is probably smart because you probably will make a lot more money than if you go with
Right.
a larger house.
I'm sorry, but I've seen where authors would be at a larger house. I can't remember one author's name. But he was at a larger house, decided he wanted more of the profit, and he just started. After that, he just started independent publishing himself, self-publishing, and
Well,
that's what he does now.
and what some authors do is, so typically, especially with larger houses, when the house purchases the book, they're only retaining the right to print it or to, you know, to use it for, like, let's say 5 years. And then after that, it reverts to the author. And so what a lot of authors do, or some authors do, especially those who have a long history, they will actually reprint. So they will make it available like online. They'll make it available through paperback. And because they already have a big following, they reissue in essence, right, those older titles, which is smart, right? Because
Right.
you know they're not really having to pay for anything up front. Um, the benefit though to guys, if to going with a larger publisher, is that larger publishers, they have a long history associated with the books. They have, so they know how well similar titles have sold. either by themselves, meaning titles sold by that publisher, or by other publishers. They typically also know exactly how to market it, like where to market it, where are the specializations, are there specific niche markets they should go after. They typically have an entire team who is focused on that kind of research and
Right.
capturing that data and then using that as a sales tool or as sales tools, not only directly to the consumer, but especially to retailers, bookstores, so forth and so on. And that's what they base the initial print run of those books on. So, what that means to you as the author, this is all work you don't have to do in theory, right?
Right.
If you're smart, you're still going to do it, right? If you're smart, you're going to partner with your publisher and you're going to find out all that information, and you're going to then take it and you're going to use it as a way to work directly with those booksellers, because most booksellers, they like that personal touch. And not just booksellers, I mean, everybody would prefer talking directly to the author, right? So you're going to take all that information, you're going to find out how you can engage with your key audiences directly, and then that also helps boost sales. So again, going back to that whole thing of, if you already have a big market, you already know you have a lot of fans, there's a ton of people out there who want to talk to you, they want to engage with you in some capacity, you've got a huge Twitter following, you've got a huge Instagram following, you got a huge Clubhouse following, whatever, right? Then there's a benefit to that. If you don't have a big following, but you're a great writer, there's a big benefit to you wanting to go after either working with a huge indie press or one of the big five, right? Public presses. If you where the small presses come in is small presses are more likely to be more experimental. Again, it's going to depend on what you bring to the table and if it's a good match for what their mission, vision, and strategies are. And again, though, with small presses, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more work, or a lot more work, around publicity and marketing and so on. Because again, the large houses have entire groups centered on this,
Right.
compared to small presses. That said, so going back to what Chris was talking about around getting your upfront, so the amount of money that you get upfront for when a book is acquired, it's not very common that a book will totally earn out, especially if you're a brand new author. And what that means is, so based on all that data that we just talked about, like all the homework, how well has similar titles sold in the past, blah, 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 right? Let's say your contract says that, and let's pretend I'm Penguin or I'm Random House, right?
Right.
And I've acquired your book. Well, let's say I acquired it for $10,000 up front, which is a decent, if you're a brand new writer, that's actually a decent amount.
Yeah.
Okay. That $10,000 is based on an assumption. Oh, and then like 15% royalties, which actually is pretty good from a major house. So that means that Penguin has just made a bet that your book is going to sell enough titles to cover that $10,000 up front. So you won't actually get any additional royalties until enough books have sold to cover that $10,000. And again, assuming that $10,000 represents 15% of the sales of that title. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, understand, even with that big sales force and all that homework and those great relationships with all those booksellers and so on, it is typically unusual for a book to actually earn out when someone's a brand new author. Again, unless you've got a great online presence, you know, you go to a lot of conferences, people come out to hear you talk, you're an influencer, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So the decision in terms of how you choose to publish your stories is one that you really got to take a lot of things into consideration before you make a final choice, I think.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I think you hit on all the points with that one.
And a lot of people change their minds along the way. To Chris, to your point, right? Like
Yeah.
1 minute they'll say, "Hey, you know, I want to be with a big house," and then they decide, you know what, I don't like this. It's not a good fit for me.
It's actually, I found it's pretty common. They're actually, they're agents who actually just do media rights because an author may not want to go back through that as far as with they're not looking to go through a big publisher. So there's definitely like a niche kind of community for authors who they take their route, they don't like it, so they don't take that route again. They may go to a smaller press, they may go in self-publishing, but yeah, people definitely change their minds because typically most contracts are going to be for like one book. So typically you get one book, and after that folks assess, and at that point they know the process. They've been through the process from the beginning of getting the book accepted to production to getting it out there to marketing, and they see from start to finish. And I mean, they've written the book, so really from start to finish what the process is. And yeah, they just change their minds. They may think, they may not, I don't know, don't like the process of it. So it's not uncommon. I've read that a lot about a lot of authors doing that. And there are lots of agents who actually kind of talk to that. If you go research, there's lots of agents who actually talk to that. You've taken this route, you don't like it. I'm here just to help you, in this other avenue of representation. So yeah, it's pretty common.
Well, and some agents, like a lot of agents, specialize, right? So, one agent let's say you write in multiple genres, right? Which is very common. You may have an agent that only represents your nonfiction over here, and you have another agent who represents your children's books here, and you have another agent who represents, your young adult over here, and then you may have another agent who represents you to in terms of licensing those stories for film or TV or other kinds of rights. So that is actually, it's very, very common to see that. Real fast, Alicia and Jose say, "Hey, Lisa and Chris." Hey,
hello there.
Good to see you guys, as always.
Yes.
Real fast, before we keep going, I just want to remind you guys, if you're watching us, this is Run Wild with Us. Ask Chris and Lisa anything. I'm Lisa Kastner, the founder and CEO of Running Wild, which consists of Running Wild Press and Rise. Chris Major is one of our amazing editors and authors, and we are here with you guys every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, just to shoot the shit. You got a question for us? Go ahead and ask it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna ask something silly, don't expect me to answer it. But if you're gonna ask me something for real,
right,
we are more than happy. So, all questions, just pop it in that comment right there, and I will repeat the question, and then we just go ahead and answer it.
So. Yeah, and also if you missed the live version, you can watch later and still pop questions in, and we'll answer them on the next segment. So that's an option too, if you miss it, or if the schedule doesn't align with maybe yours.
Right. Yeah, totally. 100%. And someone asked, like, is Lisa a man? Which I just laughed at it.
Yeah, I laughed at that too. Funny, Chris is a woman. It's funny.
Yeah. I'm like, all right. Well, I guess you were really bored, if that's
right.
the question you came up with. So.
Right. It's ridiculous. Yeah, comment sections are really funny. Sometimes, I don't know, it feels like you can tell sometimes it's a bot or something like that, but they get funny. when you go through them. It's just ridiculous. But I don't know. I guess people have a lot of time on their hands to just, I don't know, do stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know where that they get that time because I don't have it.
I don't either. To be honest, I don't. It's
But all
people.
good.
People are characters. I mean, but hey, I mean, folks like that, when you meet them in real life, they make for good fictional characters you can write about, you know. So
That's true.
yeah.
So we were talking about this before we started.
So I'm gonna hang out and answer some questions if I can.
Check that out.
So appreciate it.
Interesting. My clubhouse decided to start just because. Okay. So we were talking about this before we started. So Chris, are you a day person or are you a night person, and why?
I am a night person. Oh my goodness. I'm the kind of guy where I'm up until sunrise, where I can start to see the sun coming through the blinds, and then I wake up and the sun is setting. But I don't know. It's just I like the nighttime. I mean, there's no sirens. There's no car alarms. There's nothing. There's just silence. I'm in Alabama, so you may get like some crickets or something, but it's the white noise. You know, it's not so bad. But yeah, I mean, it's there's a serenity in it for me. It's the nighttime, so that's why you know I'm like that. I don't think we got to you though. Are you a night person or a day person?
Well, when I was younger, I was more like I was like a 2 a.m.er. Like
Okay.
I'd say usually I'd go to bed between like 1 and 2 a.m.
Okay.
And then I started working with companies where I'm working with other countries, right? Like people in other countries.
Right.
And that meant my meetings would start at like 6 a.m.
Ah.
And so I had to quickly readjust.
Yeah.
So, and then it becomes a matter of like, whatever you can make, like your body naturally, you change your internal clock basically. So now I get up every morning at 4:45 a.m.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. Jeez.
So when you're going to bed, I'm getting up.
Right.
Yeah. And then what's interesting is though, like if I have a week off for like if I have literally a week off where I don't use the alarm at all, my body starts to readjust again, and I'll stay up as late. Well, usually it's about like midnight, 1 o'clock at the latest.
Right.
And then it takes me a day or two to reacclimate when I go back to my regular, time. But
right.
Yeah, but I used to love that quiet, to your point, right?
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's nice. You can naturally, I write at night too. So like you can hear your thoughts a lot better. Well, at least I can. I mean, it's really calm. Moon's out, moonlight. Again, I'm in Alabama, so it's warm most times out of the year. I get to go when typically I write for a span, like I write for a burst of like 15, 20 minutes, go outside, pace, think, come back in, and then start working again for another burst. So yeah, it's just nice to see the stars and the moon, and sometimes you can see some constellations where I am. So that's without a telescope or anything. So that's pretty dope.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm in LA. I'm in downtown Los Angeles. And so I don't get constellations.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't imagine you guys get many stars out there because of the lights.
No. I mean, I would have to have a beach house or like a house in the hills.
Yeah.
Really,
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Which I will have.
Right.
Dang it.
I've always wanted a farm out in the country, a farm. No animals, just a farm. Garden a little bit. Sit on my porch, drink some sweet tea. I'm the typical Southerner. I swear I'm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I used to love gardening when I was younger, but it's like I just have no time to do it. Yeah.
Things
Um,
things down here are really slow. Everything's slow. How people drive on the highway, how people walk, how people talk, how we just move bodily. It's just slow. Everything time slows down. Coming from outside of the South,
mhm,
you'd see the time literally just slows down when you get down here.
nice. John Hardick has a question for us.
Okay.
He says, "Hey guys, hey John. Lisa, love your cat stealing the show. I know, I love it too until she scratches me. My question is, I have been receiving pop-ups on Facebook from Dart Frog. Bottom line, they want money, and I will put your book in 25 stores across the nation. They put up a picture and which state. They put up a picture and which state. What are both your thoughts on this? They also have different hybrids. A bunch of other companies also are popping up. What do you think?"
Let me see then.
I need to look this up because
Yeah.
I don't.
My initial thought, without having had like researched like that particular question, I'd say I know a lot of presses. If only thing I worry about with that kind of model of publishing is you wonder how much effort they would put into making sure your book is at the best quality it can be. Because we take pride in the books we decide to publish, and we work very closely with the authors when we edit. And we try to just get the book in the best shape it can be. But sometimes when you take that route, there's not that connection or care. It's, very transactional. You give us the money, we'll give you this thing. And, again, there's not that attention to detail and that care. Now, as far as they want money and we'll put your book in 25 stores across the nation, I would do research. I would, if you could. Another reason I decided to come work with Running Wild is because I did research. I'm looking for publishers. I reached out to writers with that publisher and I asked about their experience. And that's kind of how I came to my decision. So I would even look and see if you can find someone who liked their page, maybe find someone who's worked with them before and see what they say. Look at their reviews, their ratings. And if they have those and it's something that you like, it doesn't hurt. Hey, we'd like to see it. I want you to drop it in our submittable. We'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah.
But
so I just literally, John, looked them up. So it looks like, well, first of all, let's be real. 25 bookstores are nothing, right? I mean, if you join ABA, American Booksellers Association, the majority of the independent booksellers, but again, these are just small booksellers, right? This doesn't include the Barnes and Nobles. It doesn't include Amazon, right? So it doesn't include Costco's. It doesn't include large book clubs, right?
Right.
The list I have, which is outdated, is around 1,800 booksellers. So I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
They're saying they're going to place your book in 25 stores around the nation.
And you're paying.
And you're paying them. Honey, you can do this on if you self-published, you could do this on your own. You don't need them. 25? Come on.
Yeah.
Right? You could do, if you choose, you could join, or you could go to American Booksellers Association and the American Library Association. They both have conferences every year. You could get a table there and give away free copies to, the people who own these bookstores to drum up interest.
Yeah.
Right? And that way you have more control. It's more face to face. Like I said, I'm looking at their page. I'd never heard of them before, in all fairness. What concerns me is, so they're a hybrid publisher. Most, in my opinion, reputable independent publishers and hybrid publishers have an affiliation with the American Booksellers Association, the American Library Association, and the Independent Booksellers Association, so IBPA. I don't see any of them on here. I do see an affiliation with the Alliance of Independent Authors, which I've never heard of before.
I haven't either.
That doesn't really necessarily mean anything, in all fairness. But I agree with Chris. Go, before you do anything like this, do your homework and then think about what's kind of return that you're going to get for what they're going to give you.
Right.
You know, doing that, even like I said, just doing the quick search on how many independent booksellers are there, I think is a smart move. Because that'll give you some context for what they're selling to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you may find that this is valuable, and they do have a bunch of testimonials on here. And this does look like this is all self-pubbed.
Yeah. So
yeah, my gut says do your homework. It doesn't. I'm like I said, I'm just concerned because they don't have a lot of the affiliations that you would normally see for one that's really reputable. But that doesn't mean that they're not. It just means I've never heard of them before.
Right.
So that's an awesome question, John. Thank you.
It is really good question.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll help. I hope it helped you, and hopefully it'll help others as well.
Right.
So. Awesome. Okay. It is 4:41 p.m. on Wednesday, February 24th. I am Lisa Kastner, and I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press, and I'm here with Chris Major, one of our amazing authors and editors, and we are here with you every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time to answer whatever questions you may have. So if you do happen to have one, pop it in that comment section, and we will be more than happy to respond.
We love questions.
We do love questions. And Chris, what if they're catching this and we're not around?
Oh yeah, well, we'll come back and we'll see. If you can't catch us live, excuse me, you can come back and watch later. Will be uploaded same time. It runs the same time, and you can just drop a comment in the comment section. We'll come back and then we'll address it on the next segment. So we're here. Once we're going live, we're here.
Yep, 100%. So
yeah. So for anybody who wasn't here or didn't see the last video, talk about your work in progress and what you have, and kind of some of the more difficult parts about writing what you're writing. Because I know when I work, there's things kind of fall into slumps with some chapters or some stories, and I'm thinking to myself, should I put this in a drawer, throw it away? Just the typical writerly doubt we all have. So that's kind of one of the what kind of moments do you have when you're working that you just feel like maybe am I doing the right thing, or should I start over? So just stuff like that.
Oh, I get all the feels.
Yeah.
I go through all of it. So when I first started writing, I was very much a pantser. And so I would come up with an idea or a concept, and I would just start pants writing.
Yeah.
And it would become whatever it was going to become, which usually meant it would start off as like a mystery and then somehow become horror, and then somehow it's now YA. By the way, none of it would tie in. It's just that part of whatever it was, And that's a natural part of learning how to write. Everybody does it. Right? Yeah. You are replicating the styles of writing of your favorite authors. Totally natural. That is how you learn. And when I write, usually I'm writing either to spec, meaning like there's a magazine or a journal, there's somebody that I want to write, I want to be in that magazine or journal. And so I'm writing a story for them, basically. Or if it's a full-length piece. So right now, I just finished a full-length novel. It's about 67,000 words, called Cure. And it's about a woman whose brother, her twin brother, passed away. He died. She thinks he committed suicide. And she believes he committed suicide because he was diagnosed as having Huntington's disease. And that by the way, the death from Huntington's is pretty dramatic,
Yeah.
But they believe that he thinks the shaking he has is because of Huntington's. Well, her shaking has just begun. And oddly, he left in his will a trip for her to go see the Birka in Sweden. And the Birka is an ancient Viking. It's an iconic Viking. And she has no idea why. He just keeps saying that the cure to our ailment is you have to go see the Birka. Well, it turns out they don't have Huntington's disease. What they are actually shapeshifters are also known as lycanthropes, which
Oh wow, that
right,
sounds
so they're
cool.
werewolves, and they're going through that kind of like what you could call the very beginning stages of becoming a lycanthrope, right? So kind of like when you're a teenager and you're blossoming, they're
Right.
in their blossoming stage.
Yeah.
So she goes to Sweden, and a whole slew of events blows up where she somehow gets embroiled in the middle of a battle between two different groups of lycanthropes. One who believes that humans and lycanthropes should exist quite peaceably in parallel, and another who believes that lycanthropes are actually the equivalent to gods, and that they should be the ones ruling the planet, not
Oh my
humans
goodness.
who've been effing it up with
Right. Right.
global warming and I mean, I could list off a dozen things. So that one I wrote, but for me, one thing from being a pantser, I learned that I personally need to have more of a guide, like a roadmap. So I've been around for 20 something years in the writing and publishing community. So I actually did some research, and I found out that a lot of authors, what they did is they went and they basically deconstructed their favorite authors and their favorite books, and then used that as a roadmap
Oh wow.
for the novels that then became their first, second, third, whatever books. So I thought, wow, that's pretty dang smart. So that's what I did is I took a book that I really liked the structure of it, and I used that structure for Cure.
That sounds really interesting. Can't wait to read that one. That's what I was thinking about. Like, wow, that is a good idea about organization and how you take that from different authors and use them as a roadmap. I do want to say there's an application. It's not an app. It's a software called Scrivener, and it's really good. If you're kind of an organization freak, I'm not. I'm chaos. So if you come to my office, I got papers everywhere and mesh boards with stuff. But Scrivener offers all that on the screen, and you can actually write on one half of the screen and then go to the other side of the screen, and you have essentially what I have: the mesh board option. You get cards. You have flashcards on the app, on the software, and they even have an option where you can do your outline and have it all laid out there. And it's not just for prose. You can do it for screenwriting, playwriting, all of it. So just throwing that out there as far as if we talk about organization and kind of putting things together. And they have what's interesting about their free trial, it's like 7-day free trial, but it's not a 7 consecutive days. It's the first 7 days that you use it. So if you get it on Monday and use it Monday and don't use it Tuesday, then you've only used it one day. And then the next time you come back to it, that's when it goes to number 2. So I think it's really interesting, but I think it's well worth the investment. I've stopped using it because I have my own process, and I just went back to my own process. But I think the biggest thing that I liked about Scrivener was that when you did your word count, it would show you how many pages it would be in a book. As opposed to like not just your word count, but it'd show you like in a paperback book, currently it's 200 pages. And I always like that because it let me know kind of plot points and timing with the plot points. Like, okay, how long do I want this book to be? If I want it to be this long, now I'm going to have to start writing in order to, I got to get to that climax a little faster. I have to pick up my pace, or I have to slow it down. And Scrivener is really good for that. Like I like the software. It's just when I look at the blank page, I'm just so used to Word that I do it, but sometimes I'll use Word and then copy it into Scrivener,
Hmm.
and just to get an idea for how many pages it'd be in a paperback.
It's funny because well, first Alicia Delori says Scrivener. Oh, sorry. Scrivener is how I took a pile of essays and organized it into a coherent narrative. It definitely controls my chaos. So cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome feedback. Thank you, Alicia.
yeah, it's good. It's good.
Um, so I started paying attention to what the word count was for simple narratives versus complex narratives. And for me, that's how I figure out, like, if I wrote something from like a multiple points of view and it's only at 50,000 words, I know that I'm doing a lot of summary where I should actually expand it. I know I haven't really explored different storylines because typically multiple storylines, it's running between like, multiple points of view that where they each have their own real narrative. Usually, you're talking about anywhere from 80 to 100,000 words.
Yeah,
So for me, that's a nice gauge.
yeah,
Like once you kind of get that in your head in terms of the story's complexity. So,
yeah.
mhm. So anyway, how
Yeah.
about you? What are you working on?
I'm working on. Oh, I call it all these things, but what it really is it's a novella. Started off kind of as a novel. When I sat down, it was to be a novel, but it turned into kind of like we talked about before, a collection of connected short stories with an arc. It's essentially about a Southern family and kind of the small, nuanced, mundane intricacies of those kind of relationships,
Oh, fun.
and things that we don't normally appreciate about life that we live every day, or things that irritate us every day. Because we're so busy and on the move all the time. We don't sit down and think, about just small stuff within our relationships, even with friends, within our relationships that we don't consciously think about. I like to think of it as I was thinking yesterday, like if I had to describe it as a sitcom, I like to think, because I try to put humor in there. I don't know if it's funny, but it's kind of like Seinfeld, like a
Mm.
book about nothing. So it's like
Mhm.
I was just these small, nuanced kind of things, nuanced relationships and situations that we have, and I try to make them entertaining as I can. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. It was fun working on. Uh, it really makes you stop and kind of think about your daily life and what you do, and kind of the effects, kind of some decisions we make have on other people, the effects they have on you. I definitely want the reader to come away kind of having thought about something in a different way or a different manner, or have a new perspective, and also be entertained while they do it. While I try and do that, so especially dealing, being a person of color, obviously, you want to highlight kind of some things that may not be evident, and
Mhm.
sometimes when you try and give that medicine, it's bitter and people turn away from it. So you have to add a component of sugar to it, or in my case, I try to do it with comedy.
Mhm.
So you add that, and it's a lot easier to digest for people who may not have that perspective, and it may be fun to digest and become something really nourishing for the perspective, how they treat people, talk to people. So yeah, that's it. It's basically the summary of it. But if I had to describe it to anybody, it's kind of a Southern
Southern
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, it's a book about nothing.
That's awesome. I mean, but it's interesting to your point. I think one of the big beauties of story is that you can take points of view, and if it's done well in the context of a story, you can provide perspectives that others maybe who've never had that experience, and by design they would never be able to have that experience,
Right,
to have that experience and go, oh my god, that's what that means, like that's you know
right,
and so it
right.
makes it accessible. And it's funny, I have a friend who she is one of the voters. So whenever something's voted for like an Oscar, right, it goes to a whole academy of folks, and they vote on what ones would then become actually the ones that were nominated for, and she was saying how a lot of them this year are very preachy. So how in previous years, and it's because there were so few films that actually made it to the screen, like to the big
Right.
screen. And she was just kind of commenting on, like, you can have a story that it has there's a point to it, there's a meaning, right? There's a lesson, and it's not preachy, it's really entertaining, and
Right.
you leave it saying, I want to watch that again, right?
Right.
But that wasn't the case this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it does have to do with kind of the times we're in, though, as far as the preachiness. I think people are trying to. It's bittersweet because I think it means like there's a rise in kind of like protest art, if that makes any sense. But at the same time, if there's not that balance of kind of the delivery of the message that you're trying to say, it can definitely be preachy and, dare I say it, borderline boring. So yeah, there's definitely a delicate balance with that.
I mean, and so to your point, like, I look at like Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw, right? And all the films that he's coming out with Monkey Paw. And they all definitely have messages that are like, you need to pay attention to. But those films are very engaging.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah, I think that's fed the, and I like films, but I don't know the intricacies of them. But if I had to say that about Peele, it's his ability to balance that, and he does it so well, because you can be both entertained and laugh about it while you're watching, or be in his case, fearful. But when you go home or a couple days later, you get in the shower, you're still thinking about kind of the message that he said, and it's not the shock value. It's kind of like boxing, right? Like sometimes you feel the punch immediately, but sometimes you don't feel it until adrenaline's gone and your ribs are hurting. And I think that's a sign of a well-balanced artistic project, is when you walk away and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm still thinking about this weeks later, a couple of days later. So I think that's a good I think that's a sign you have a really good project.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're so engaged in that story, you're so engaged in the entertainment value in it, you're so engaged in that world that you're watching or you're reading, right? That you are getting that message or those messages, right? You're getting whatever that lesson is, but you don't necessarily really start really acknowledging it at a conscious level until a day or two later, and go, holy crap, wow, that was amazing. Like, I never really thought about
and then sometimes it makes you want to go back and read or watch again to see maybe what else you missed. And so you kind of consume it with a different lens than when you did before. I've had plenty of movies or books like that where I read, it's interesting, I think about it, I'm like, if I missed that, what else could I have missed? And so then you go back, and that's how you, in my opinion, that's how you find your favorite books. That's how you found one of your favorite books, because you can read it over and over again. You know what's going to happen already, but you read it again because it has that effect for you.
That's right, exactly. Awesome. All right, with that, we've got 2 minutes. So anybody, if you're watching and you want to ask us a question live, this is your shot. So oops, nope, we only got 1 minute. I lied.
1 minute, yeah. And go
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and again, if you miss us, you can just drop them in the comments of this video after we're done today, and we will get back to them and we'll answer those questions next week.
That's right. So with that, then actually, I'm gonna tell everybody, thank you so much for watching. Whether you're watching us live or you're watching us later in the week or you're watching us a year from now, we are incredibly thankful for you here with us. We love questions.
Yes.
Please go ahead, pop them in the chat. So I'm Lisa Kastner, and it's been fabulous having you guys with us. and Chris and I will see you next week.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, guys.